done eating or continue? You want to sing one song and then we start? Okay. Where's our hymnal anyway?
Another shuffle.
Oh, maybe. Let me check. No. No. They put it away. Or maybe you know by heart. Any song that you know by heart you want to sing? You know, pick it. Anybody? God is so good? Sure. Oh, amen. Oh, there. There's only two. God is so good. Everybody knows that song, God is so good. Okay, let's sing God is so good. Before we start, we want to say a prayer, and if any prayer request, should you do prayer request at the end or now? At the end? Okay. And Tiffany is not here either for her birthday, so we'll do that together. But how many of you, when Dr. Rolando was here last December? Only a few of us, right? So, oh yeah, you're here too. So this is the second time Dr. Rolando will present to us tonight, and we praise the Lord, and we thank the Lord for him. I know he's so busy, but he put his time aside just for us. And we also appreciate for that. But before we give this time to him, we're gonna say a prayer. So kids, if you just a little calm down.
Alex?
Okay, everybody.
Benjamin.
Okay. But before we say prayer, let's sing to prepare our heart. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Everybody knows that? That tune? Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in His wonderful face, and the things on earth will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. Let's bow our heads. Our God, our Father in heaven, we thank you so much for this Sabbath day. Thank you for bringing us all together here tonight. Thank you for the time that we can spend together. And we invite you to be in this meeting, dear God, and in everything we do here, in everything we learn that will bring glory to your name. Especially we pray for Dr. Rolando tonight, that he will present to us the health message, and we invite you, dear God, to help him to speak to us, that the health message that he will present to us will teach us how to live according to your will. And we pray, dear God, for our friend, maybe they are still on the way, give them a safe trip. And we pray for the people who plan to come to this meeting, but for some reason they cannot make it. You know better than we do, and bless them as well. We thank you, dear God, for all that you have provided for us. Thank you for your love, and thank you for answering our prayer. And we ask you forgiveness, and let the Holy Spirit be with us tonight. And all praise to you alone, in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. All right, there you go, Dr. Rolando.
So how's everyone feeling? Good stuff? Ready to take a nap? Yes. All right, well, I got a lot of information so that you can take a nap right now. By the time I'm done, it'll be nice and awake. No, I'm just kidding. Now, hopefully I won't bore you tonight, but I will talk. And is there a certain time limit for me? I just, want to throw that out
As long as you want.
As long as I want, okay. Well, I'm going to talk, and anyone can discuss with me at any time, okay? I prefer that because, sometimes it's not just everyone learning from me, but I want to learn from you as well. You can learn from each other, just because someone's, you put like a title in front of their name doesn't mean that you can't keep learning. If anything, that title tells you that he has to keep learning, right? So feel free to speak up whenever if you have a question or a point. Okay, so quick introduction. I'm Dr. Rolando Fulgencio. I'm a naturopathic physician. I graduated from Bastyr University, and Anna's the one that set up this talk for me, and I appreciate that. Also appreciate Jimmy and also Lana for having us here tonight. But yeah, she actually goes to Bastyr University, and I recently graduated from there. I have a practice now in Kent, Washington. My mentor is Dr. Joseph Jumovic. He's actually a former apprentice of Dr. John Bastyr, which Bastyr University is named after. And so I'm a primary care physician. I do family medicine, pain management, in other words, physical medicine. Today I'll be talking to you about a topic that is quite, I don't know where to stand here. Okay, I'll stand over here. I'm going to be going back and forth. I like to move when I talk, okay? And also I want to see the computer so every once in a while. So I'm just going to, as Adventists in the Adventist church, growing up in the Adventist church, we do a lot of very good evangelism to different countries and whatnot. But a lot of times, even though if we do evangelism, we forget the second aspect of our ministry. So a couple texts here, Jesus went through Galilee teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom. We do that very well. Very well. And healing every disease and sickness among the people. So what else see? That's Matthew 4:23. Jesus said, he went through the towns and villages teaching in synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. And then one day Jesus was teaching, and Pharisees and teachers of the law were sitting there. They had come from every village of Galilee and from Judea and Jerusalem, and the power of the Lord was with Jesus to heal the sick. One thing we sometimes forget is the healing aspect. It's the ministry of healing. We forget that. So today we're going to talk about a topic that very few know about, but and specifics about it, but they know that it's pretty much everywhere. So this is actually part of a series that I did a few months ago. As Anna mentioned, I was here in December, so there was that piece that was done. The first part is the second part of Cancer Revealed. So some facts about cancer. Well, we know currently cancer is one of the top 10 killers in the United States. Today, 1 in 4 males and 1 in 5 females die of cancer. And it's estimated that in just 30 short years, it'll be 1 in 2 males and 1 in 3 females will die of cancer. That is if we maintain the rate that we're at right now. And that's very significant. So because if you were here last time when I spoke, we talked about the history of cancer and how it came about. Now, at the time of Hippocrates, cancer was a very rare thing, right? You don't see it all the time. And so when Hippocrates actually documented it, it was just like a few sentences, because there's not much information on it. Basically, it's just a swollen knob on a human being, the tumor. But now we're seeing that cancer is so prevalent now that a lot of people are actually dying from it. So I want to share this quote right here from the Bible. My people perish for lack of knowledge. So that's in Hosea 4:6a, and of course, we're talking about spiritual knowledge when we're talking about this, but also knowledge in terms of physically and emotionally and even mentally. So what's the knowledge that I'm talking about? Well, as we mentioned previously, according to the CDC, it's one of the top 10 killers in the United States today. Cancer is number 2, heart disease just above. People believe cancer will overtake that in a few years. And just to recap for those that were here last time, who was here last time to see the last talk? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, this is for you 4. A recap. We talked about self cells multiplying at a normal rate and dying, and many aspects of health that contribute to the cancer, primarily environmental and not genetic. So epigenetics, if you guys can recall, we talked about that. That's just kind of a new type of science. Well, in the past few years, that has grown exponentially. But that's just a quick recap. Today we'll be talking about, then God said, let the land produce vegetation. So the scientific potential, natural cures for cancer. Now it's a long title there. Now, I want to say here, I say scientific potential natural cures. And the reason why I say potential, previously that word wasn't there, okay? But the reason why I have to say potential is because it's according to the FDA, it's illegal for me to say that anything natural can heal anything. So for example, if you're familiar with scurvy, it's an vitamin C deficiency, but if I told you the orange will cure the scurvy, well, I could get sued. So I can't say that. So in this sense, I'm going to say potential natural cures. And if you guys are interested, after I'm done talking here, hopefully you're not falling asleep, I can tell you next time, if I have a chance to speak again, a little more on the political aspect of why this potential has to be in there. So one thing, there's a lot of texts in the Bible that are very important to health and whatnot. There's a few here that I'm going to start with, just to put us up on a good base here. Then God said, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees in the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds, and it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed and according to their kinds, and God said that it was good. And that's Genesis 1, 11, 12. Now, of course, God says a lot of things are different things are good. Now here, I wanted to emphasize is, well, what's so good about it? What's so good about this vegetation that he's talking about, right? So let's start there. Let's try to figure out why is it so good. Let's try to open that up. But before we can actually answer that question, why this vegetation is so good, I think it's good. It's a good thing. So what makes it so good? We have to talk about what are the things that are so bad. A contrast. So if we figure out what's so bad, we can figure out why it's so good. Okay. What is so bad? So in order to do that, I want to do a quick history on the standard American diet. SAD. Sad, right? It's a terrible way to call it, but that's how we write down, you know? Oh, what's the person's diet? Oh, it's SAD. SAD. Okay. And that's actually legitimate. That's what doctors know it to be. But let's go, and I mind you, the graphics on this are not amazing, but there it is. It's just, I just drew lines here and copy and pasted these pictures. But this pretty much shows between the 1900s and 2000 and at our time, kind of how, a quick draw of like how food has developed in American culture. So we'll start off with this small part here. In the 1900s, we had about 65 pounds of sugar a year was taken in by the average American. Now some sources would actually say it's more like 40. But let's be generous here, 65 pounds. Does that sound like a lot? Yeah. It sounds like a lot, right? But that was just in the 1900s. Now let's keep going here. In World War I, rationing was emphasized due to the lack of food supply. In 1920s, supermarkets came about. Now you have Safeways, you have Albertsons, and all that came about. And just to note, in supermarkets originally, they just had vegetables. It didn't have much meat at the time. But that's when supermarkets came about in the 1920s. Processed food around the 1930s became somewhat more valuable in a sense because due to the fact that it was cheaper. And then you had frugality again came about due to the fact that World War II, people were rationing out again to support the war that was happening. So convenience and processed foods were emphasized further. And after World War II, 1950s came about, and fast foods came to be. And this is actually the very first McDonald's that opened up. It was just one arch. Not interesting. Now it's two arches, right? And we know McDonald's to be. Double the value, I guess. Here in the 1967, 1965, around that area, at that time, high fructose corn syrup was introduced into the market. And that's going to be pretty significant because high fructose corn syrup has some aspects of it that we will discuss later. 1990s, we have nutrition labeling that was put into effect. Now people were emphasizing wanting to know what they're putting in their bodies, what's in their food, how much nutrition content is in there. And here we are in the year 2000 and at our time now. And now I show this Dorito here, and this is actually quite a math equation that is made to determine the bliss point. So the bliss point, if you find the bliss point is the best point of texture and flavor with the least of cost, but irresistible to customers. So in a sense, it's pretty interesting, right? The science now trying to get the right Dorito in there. But really, if you can keep, as a business, from the business mindset, you keep the costs low, but you still make it so that it's getting a lot in the market. You're producing a lot of people are buying. Hey, that's it. You got the bliss point. That's it. But that's where we are right now. That's how food developed. Now, with that quick history of American food, what did you notice out of that quick thing, 1900s and to this point?
More sugar.
More sugar.
More
Less
fat.
sugar. More fat. Less freshness. That's true. So what we see is increased processed foods. As time went on, people just, for some reason, wanted processed foods. Dinner, microwave dinners came about there too, and around World War II. Decreased vegetable intake, actually, and I didn't exactly show that, but we'll look at that a little more. But somebody said increased sugar intake, That's a big one. And increased business, that's one thing to point out too. You had the restaurants that came about, and then different products, food products came about too through processed foods, right? And that just goes to show, we talked about the bliss point. I mean, that's business, increased business right there. So it's a science now. So some people would look at that and think, well, that's okay, because it's not so much the food itself, but also how you prepare the food, right? So if we were, let's say, making the food ourselves, it'd be fresher, it'd be better. That'd be great. So let's look at, how things have changed since about that time and now. So here we go. We have this is people spending eating where they're eating most of the time. Blue is away from home, and red is fast food, and the green is the home. So if you see here, originally almost close to more than 90% of the people in the 1900s or so ate at home. But as time went on, and then you get here to about the 1940s and whatnot, and remember, around this time is when fast food places came about and boomed. So you have this increase in people eating at fast food restaurants, increased people eating at sit-down restaurants, most likely, possibly cafes and whatnot. But some people would look at this like, oh well, it's okay, because you got about 50% of the people still eating at home. Now that is also a very good thing, because at least you're preparing your food, right? However, what are we usually eating at home? So here's actually a picture of a couple families that was shown what they're eating on a typical week. So here's one family, and they got some Mars bars, they got some potato chips, and look at that, they got a few fruits in there, right? And here's another family. So what they typically eat throughout the week. So first, looking at this, what are you guys' reactions first? Yeah. So that's the thing. Like for a lot of processed foods, and a lot of processed foods actually have a lot of sugar in it, actually, to make it taste good. But what else do we know here? Here's a study that was done. Processed food makes up 70% of the U.S. diet. What? 70% of the U.S. diet? It's a lot. Okay, and it's when it says you cruise down the aisle of most any grocery store, what you see, despite what you might think, isn't properly called just food. Most of those items are what we come to know have processed food. Cookies, crackers, cereal, even yogurt crammed with various chemicals that'll let it sit on the shelf for a good long time, all the while containing enough sugar and salt to make it taste good. And that's pretty much how it is. So in a sense, you're taking in a bunch of preservatives, right, into your body. Now, if you're doing that every once in a while, it's really not that big a deal. But if it's making up 70% of your diet, that's when things can become complicated. Processed food. Now, what is processed food? I'm just going to define here. Food that is typically packaged or canned. Food that has gone through a procedure that makes it no longer resemble its appearance if it were found in nature. Now you might think, now isn't everything processed, right? Even organic stuff is somewhat processed, right? You gotta package it, right? So in a sense, that is processed. But what you got to think about then is how processed are the foods that we're taking in. The fresher, the better. So the degree of process differs from food to food. Now I'm just gonna have a little quiz here for you guys, and you guys let me know which one's more processed and which one's less processed. I'm gonna give you two pictures here, okay? Which one's more processed and which one's less processed? White rice is more processed?
Yeah.
The same.
Okay. The same? The same? Actually, this is more processed. Now, if you think about it, what is brown rice? It's basically white rice with the husk.
Yeah,
It's
unbleached.
the same thing, right? So the thing about that is this husk is actually a fiber source, and that will decrease the glycemic index of the rice in general. So your blood glucose won't rise so high, and in addition to that, it'll actually clean your gut, the gut lining, and actually makes you feel fuller. Yeah. So it's better. Yeah, it's actually better. Now, okay, we're looking at this and this. Which one's more processed? Yeah, you know, one time I gave this talk and a kid was like, this is more processed. And I was like, nah, this is more processed because you're not going to walk around the forest and see that. You know, you're not going to be like, oh, there's a hunt, all right, dig it out. No, it's not going to happen. Okay, one more. I got one more here, okay? You tell me which one's more processed or less processed. Oh, you're pointing. Which one? Chicken nuggets. This is more processed, yes. This needs a little processing. You want to at least, you know, cook it before you eat it. So there's a little process to be done there. But what else do we know about processed meats, processed foods in general? Here, this is the World Health Organization, and the American Cancer Society actually agreed with them. And they found that processed meat causes cancer. Now, if you actually go to the World Health Organization, what do you call this, website, you can actually see that's listed there. Smoking causes cancer, certain drugs cause cancer, and then processed meat is also there too. It's really interesting. They found that eating 50 grams of processed meat every day increased the risk of colorectal cancer by 18%. That's the equivalent of about 4 strips of bacon or 1 hot dog. For red meat, there was evidence of increased risk of colorectal, pancreatic, and prostate cancer. Oh, that's terrible. What? Right, I said that. So, in this history of the American food, this is what we've noticed here. Increased sugar intake, increased business. Now let's emphasize, why is it such a big deal when we have so much sugar within our body, right? So to make this very general, okay, we'll take a regular cell, okay, it's a regular cell. And within these cells you have organelles. Let me do this again. You have these organelles and whatnot, okay? And on these, if you were to take a slice of the membrane here, you would see receptors. So here's a slice of the membrane, okay? On these receptors, there's different kinds of receptors on the cells, but this one will be focused on the GLUT4 and these insulin receptors, okay? So insulin is a hormone that your body creates when there's too much sugar in your blood, and then it attaches to these insulin receptors. Process goes on around here. GLUT4 doors are sent in, and then glucose can come in to the cell. Now, that's just a normal cell, and when that operates just fine, that's great. However, cancer cells have been known to actually have 10 to 15 times more insulin receptors than the average cell. Meaning, if you were to take in sugar and you have a few cancer cells within you, what are you basically doing? You're feeding it, right? Because it's gonna outcompete the other cells for that glucose, right? So that's actually something that you'd like to avoid as much as you can. Now, here's an article done by Dr. Marcola. Oh, don't do that to me. All right, fine. Right here. No, it's not working. I think I might have to go like this. But then you guys can't see me. Oh, it's freezing up a little bit. Sorry about that, we got a halftime. Does anyone need to use the restroom?
Intermission.
Yeah. If you'd like to get seconds, now would be the time. Oh.
I think it comes.
Just trying to figure out what's going on. You're taking my advice.
That's a veggies.
Yeah.
That's less processed.
Vegetarian. Why do you like vegetarian? You sound like you make things. Why you don't eat
Maybe one set.
Oh, okay, that's what happened.
I'd be laughing. I'd go out and buy one of those. Oh.
I think it might. It's just slowing down here.
Okay. Let's have fun singing.
Yeah.
Well, sing the computer. Who would you like?
Just allow.
Is it the one?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it too high? Okay. More song.
When the trumpet of the Lord shall sound,
Okay.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed halftime there.
Okay.
Thanks,
I'll stay here in case.
Okay. Something goes wrong. Hit it, Adam. So this is an article written by Dr. Mercola. He's a medical doctor, but he practices with a lot of natural remedies. And he says here, Cancer's favorite food, found in everything you eat. He goes on to say Americans take in large amounts of fructose, mainly in high fructose corn syrup. Remember we talked about that, came in about 1967 or so. A mix of fructose and glucose that is used in soft drinks, bread, and a range of other foods. Politicians, regulators, health experts, and the industry have debated whether high fructose corn syrup and other ingredients have been helping make Americans fatter and less healthy. And then it goes on. Oops. Up. Yes, so it's highlighted those. And basically what they're trying to figure out is it really making us fatter, right? It's interesting though, because we'll go here a little bit. Remember when I told you about cancer being having 10 to 15 times more insulin receptors than the average cell? So this is based on a National Cancer Institute, and they found that nuclear imaging and PET scans, if you guys don't know, PET scans are done in that they use radioactive sugar they give it to the patient. I'm sorry, I'm trying to blabble on here. They give it to the patient, it goes into the cells, and that's how they're able to see the imaging that's on the screen. Now, it's sugar, so this is just to show how it is. If the PET scan, this is a normal person that's taken in the radioactive sugar, and this is just the bladder here, so it's not cancerous or anything. But this is someone that actually has tumors around spread in their bodies. So basically, what's happening is this sugar that's being taken in is being absorbed primarily by just the cancer cells, not the other cells in the body. So it's out eating the other cells, taking away that energy, using that up. And we are well aware of it, so much so that we use it as a form of imaging. Right? Now we don't always want to keep doing this to our patients that have cancer, right? So they recommend doing it maybe every 3 months, every 6 months, something like that. But if you do it regularly, you can think you're basically feeding those cells just to see them, right? So there's a positron emission tomography, and combination of sugar and small amounts of radioactively labeled sugar. The reactive sugar can help in locating a tumor because cancer cells take up or absorb sugar more avidly than other tissues in the body. And that's within just a few minutes after ingesting it. So if you think about how fast are they absorbing this stuff, really fast. So if you imagine high fructose corn syrup, basically what that is condensed sugar, you know. So 1 teaspoon of sugar compared to just regular sugar, compared to 1 teaspoon of high fructose corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup is actually thought of as a poison in a sense because it's so dense in the sugar content. And here's just a graph here that shows the obesity epidemic and the sugar consumption throughout the years. And remember, we went from here to the 1900s, but this goes back to the 1700s with sugar consumption. Sugar consumption has gone up here quite significantly, and at the same time, obesity has as well. Now, of course, we can't say exactly that correlation is causation. That's not the case, but it's just an interesting thing to know on why that is. Here's an article here. Not so sweet. The average American consumes 150 to 170 pounds of sugar each year. Remember what it was in the 1900s? 65, some would say 40. Now imagine that. Average American is taking in 150 to 170. But you know what? If you ask the average American, man, why are you eating so much sugar? They'll be like, what are you talking about? I'm not eating that much sugar. Right? But it's in the processed foods. You know, that's the thing. It's like, you know, some people would ask, and you know, just a warning, you know, when you see something that's fat-free, they remove the fat, but they've added sugar to make up for the flavor, the lack of flavor. So just remember that. And just so you know, how does that process work? You know, in the 1960s, people believed that it was 1960s and 70s, they thought it was fat that was making everyone fat. In a sense, they were right. So they made everything fat-free, but they added sugar in it. But what's happening now is sugar is making everyone fat because that sugar is being quickly converted into fat. You're storing it as fat. So of course that's for another talk here. So yeah, here it is. This is American Sweets. This is what they found. I forgot where the source of this was. I do have the source of it. Anyways, I forgot where that was. Where was that?
At the bottom it says the Department of Agriculture.
Oh, Department of Agriculture. I can't see that. But it's a good source. It's a legitimate source. So you can see here in 1950s we had 109. 1960s we had 114. This is the total caloric sweeteners that people are taking in. 1970s keeps going up, right? 126. 1990s, 1999, 145. That's already really high. And 2000 we're at 152. Now we're at 2016. So now people are believing that you're closer to that. One second. That's quite significant. 152.
Now is this all just sugar and high fructose, or is that other natural stuff like honey or anything like that?
From my understanding is it's all sweets. So it does include like honey and whatnot. But what's being predominantly used, of course, is straight up high fructose corn syrup and sugar. Now, here's one, trends in the number of cancer deaths among men and women. So men are blue, women are red, and it just kept going higher and higher. Now, remember, and this is from National Cancer for Health Statistics, Center for Disease and Control, again, Prevention, CDC. Now, we saw this one, right? Now, let's put them together here, and just saying that the incline, although you can't make a causation type of conclusion, but it's just an interesting thing to note that as obesity and sugar increased, so did the continuing increase of cancer itself. And I want you to know something. If we looked at the World Health Organization the top 10 killers in the world, cancer is not even in there for the rest of the world. Cancer is not in the top 10. I want you to know that. I didn't show that here, but it's only top 10. It's number 2 in America. Interesting there. So this is pretty much what we've gone through. We looked at that, and we see here, and this is a Huffington Post. What's the big deal? Oh, yeah. So basically, sorry, it's been a while since I gave this talk here. So basically, we looked at these statistics, and we know about how America has gone to where it is right now. But one thing I left out here is how agriculture has changed. The way agriculture has been done, and you were talking to me earlier about GMOs, it's actually another topic that should be discussed. But here's a Huffington Post. What's the big deal about genetically modified organisms? So just quickly, I'm not going to go too in depth into this. But the American Academy of Environmental Medicine has warned about genetically processed foods, advises us to tell their patients to avoid GMOs, explaining that the introduction of GMOs into the current food supply is correlated with an alarming rise in chronic disease and food allergies. Like sometimes when I see patients, they can't figure out what's wrong with them, I have to just say, okay, we're just gonna have to check the food allergies, because a lot of times what we're eating is causing our disease, and we're just not aware of it, you know. So what else do we have here? So here's the real, including countries such as Australia. So more than 40 industrialized nations have stopped giving GMOs to their people. So the question of whether or not to identify and label GMOs is a no-brainer. When asked how Europeans handle GMO labeling, a European colleague of mine, not surprisingly, laughed as she wisely said, "You Americans can make such a big deal out of nothing. In Europe, this is a very easy question to answer. Research has consistently shown that it is bad for you, so we stopped using it." So that makes you wonder, right? Like, why? So why are we doing it then? You know, right? Well, again, you know, if next time we speak, then we'll open up that political aspect of this whole thing too. But understand one thing: food companies, they have lobbyists. You know, you're not going to have the herbalists having lobbyists, right? They just don't have the capital for that, right? Or whatever else that, nutritionists having lobbyists. You're not going to have that, right? So here's a list of GMO plants. So I'll just go through it real quick here. We have soy, we have corn, we have cotton. You don't have to eat this one, so that's great. We have canola. We have sugar beets in particular, sugar beets I should say. And we have alfalfa. That's too bad, because alfalfa is known to be nutrient dense. And then sugar beets help the liver, supposedly, but now you got to kind of avoid or just question the people you're buying it from, because it's better for you to get the organic and not the GMO one, right? But again, they're not labeled, so how can you tell, right? This is that's too bad, because we like tofu. Right? We like tofu. And now I have to watch out for tofu? Come on! What's going on here? And of course corn, because like high fructose corn syrup is processed food and GMO. So other things to consider. We talked about quite a bit about the history of food, pesticide, herbicide residue, excitotoxins such as MSG and aspartame, gluten sensitivity. These are big topics, right? We're just going to overview it because we don't have all night. Water content is also another thing. You got to understand, like for instance with water bottles. Now, some people ask me, now you give that talk about water bottles, now are you not going to drink water from water bottles? Well, I'm gonna drink it if I need to. But the thing is that the soft plastics that wrap the water that are the water bottles, some of it actually is absorbed into the water, and you don't want that, right? But at the same time, I try to sweat a little bit each day, exercise a little bit each day, try to detox a little bit each day. So even though if I'm taking in some things that I would try to avoid, at least I'm getting rid of it as much as I can. So now that we've seen the bad, so we go back to this text. And God said, let the land produce vegetation, and God saw it was good. In Genesis 1, 11, 12. So what makes it so good? So this is how what we know now, scientifically, about what makes things so good. Let's make it really simple. We'll start first with an orange. Who here loves oranges? Oranges, they're pretty good, right? How can you not like oranges? They're so sweet, right? Well, let's look at the typical orange, what it has in it. So it has these potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, calcium, iron, quite a bit of nutrients in it, right? But what are oranges really known for? Vitamin C. Okay. Vitamin C has 69.7 milligrams. Okay. So what do we know about vitamin C now? Okay. Well, a lot of studies have seen, and this is a study that was done by the National Cancer Institute, or an article that was written about vitamin C. It's a nutrient found in food and dietary supplements. Laboratory studies have shown that high doses of vitamin C may slow the growth and spread of prostate, pancreatic, liver, colon, and other types of cancer cells. I like that they've said and other types of cancer cells. They stopped listing it as if they got tired, yeah, it can pretty much help against cancer. So that's vitamin C. What else do we know here? Vitamin C treatment blocks tumor growth in certain models of pancreatic, liver, prostate, and ovarian cancers. Sarcoma, malignant mesothelioma. What else did we see here? It improves in physical, mental, and emotional functions, symptoms of fatigue, nausea and vomiting, pain, and appetite loss. These symptoms are very, very common in patients that have cancer. Right? So it can help with the symptoms of cancer, but it can actually attack the cancer itself too. That's just regular old vitamin C. Everybody knows vitamin C, right? No big deal. What else do we have here? We have vitamin B6. Well, what do we know about vitamin B6? Oh, vitamin B6. Let's see. This is taken off PubMed. Dietary vitamin B6 intake and the risk of colorectal cancer. What did they find here? We report the findings of a large case study investigating the assertion between colorectal cancer and dietary and total vitamin B6 intake. It goes on and says our findings of moderately strong inverse association in models 1 and 2. Inverse relationship meaning as cancer, as vitamin B6 goes up, cancer goes down. That's what they mean by inverse relationship. The association was found for both colon and rectal cancer risk. It was stronger in a younger, I want to read that last part. But basically, it helps prevent and get rid of cancer as well. Just a regular vitamin B6. Okay? Well, what else do we know? Here's another one here. Vitamin B6, risk of colon, a meta-analysis of prospective studies. Conclusion, vitamin B6 intake and blood BLP levels were inversely, again that word, inversely associated with the risk of colorectal cancer in this meta-analysis. So if you know, a meta-analysis is actually, you're studying a bunch of different studies that were done and trying to find a conclusion, a pattern from those different studies. So they concluded that actually, it's just confirming that inverse relationship again. The risk of colorectal cancer decreased by 49%. Wow, 49% for just regular vitamin B6? Are you kidding me? Man, where the oranges at, right? There's the oranges. So that's a big number. That's a big number right there. You're taking something, you're eating just a regular nutrient, and it decreases your chance by 50%. Oh boy, that's a lot. Okay, so sources of vitamin B6. Well, we have sweet potatoes, we have pumpkin seeds, we have fish, turkey, spinach, bananas, salmon, sunflower seeds, potatoes. Notice it doesn't come from the GMOs, so that's great. You can avoid the GMOs and still have a lot of vitamin B6 in there. So it's actually in quite a bit of sources. Here's another one, quercetin, because these are micronutrients now. Vitamin C and vitamin B6 are considered macronutrients, so these are in smaller amounts, micro amounts. It's anti-inflammatory. It's found in pretty much every vegetable and fruit out there. Okay, it's an antioxidant. It's found in many fruits and vegetables. Like I said, it's used against heart disease, diabetes, and cancer prevention now. That's the most recent finding now that it's also great for cancer as well. Quercetin is everywhere too. So what else do we have here? Well, we have a study here. Flavonoid quercetin inhibits pancreatic cancer growth in vitro and in vivo. So within a laboratory setting and within just a regular a human or animal host. What do we see here? Our results demonstrate that the growth inhibitory effects of quercetin are mediated by an increase in apoptotic cell death. So for those that were here last time, apoptotic cell death is basically the cell killing itself. So your cells, when they're normal, if they were somewhat defective, it initiates a self-destruct mechanism if you're dysfunctional. Now the thing with cancer is, that's done away with. The interesting thing is, a lot of drug companies are trying to figure out how you can specifically target just the cancer cell and cause it to kill itself. They can't figure that out, but quercetin does it. You know, it does it on its own. So it doesn't kill off the other cells, it kills off just specifically the cancer cells. What else do we have here? The pro-apoptotic effect of quercetin is in accordance to other published reports, meaning this has been shown many times in other cancer models. Okay, and here's another micronutrient, resveratrol. Now we're only going through a few of these. It's a polyphenol, antioxidant found in many fruits and vegetables. I put grapes there because they're found in a lot of red grapes. They're used against heart disease, and now they're finding out it's also cancer prevention. Well, what do we know about that? Here's another scientific article, resveratrol, potential as anti-cancer agent. Resveratrol appears to have anti-cancer effects. What else is there? Additionally, these studies indicate that resveratrol's chemoprevention effect is dose and duration dependent, so it depends how much you're taking in. It has synergistic effect with anti-cancer drugs in vitro. Meaning, even if you're taking chemotherapy, it actually will enhance the effects in terms of killing off the cancer. So it's pretty interesting stuff here. Here's another one, ellagic acid. Now I'm not just anti-proliferative, primary in vegetables. Another one for ellagic acid. It shows select cytotoxicity and anti-proliferative activity. So meaning it targets specifically, again, just the cancer cells. And then it also causes it to kill itself. And then it prevents it from multiplying.
What is that in?
The ellagic acid, it's found in a lot of fruits and vegetables, but it's a lot of it is in just raspberries. Yeah. Yeah. Right? What a delicious medicine, right? Okay. Cancer cells without any toxic effect on the viability of normal human cells, lung fibroblast cells. So even in lung cancer, it helps decrease lung cancer without affecting the other cells around it, the normal cells. It decreased ATP production, which is crucial for the viability of cancer cells. So remember we were talking about how insulin, how that works within the cell, and then takes in sugar. Glucose is being converted into ATP, actually. So this actually stops it from producing ATP. So it decreases the energy that it can produce. Just on the cancer, not on any other normal cell or anything. Just apigenin. There's another one. This is found in a lot of celery. Prevent renal damage, accelerates apoptosis in cancer cells. Again, causing it to kill itself. So here's another one. Apigenin, right? Proximate for cancer prevention. They found including reduction, it includes the risk, decrease the risk of developing certain cancers. The neoplastic formation, since apigenin is one of the most bioactive plant flavone and is widely distributed to common fruits, beverages, and vegetables. So it's basically, it's everywhere too. All of these micronutrients I'm talking about is pretty much in all vegetables and fruits. It's like, it's pretty interesting. So what we know now is there's 8,000 carotenoids, 20,000 bioflavonoids, and over 100,000 scientific articles written on the efficacy of these micronutrients. That's a lot. Now we just went through just a few of them, right? But we could be here all night talking about these things. But you know, here's a question though that I'll propose to you. If there's so much scientific evidence to support these micronutrients, why is it not very many people know about it?
Big business.
That's a possibility. I can neither confirm nor deny that. I gotta be smart about my words. But again, that's an interesting thing that right there, because you know, again, if the next time if we talk about it, we can go into the political aspects of why things are the way they are. Here's a study from Harvard. That's the shield of Harvard. Look at that. Harvard University study finds eating 2 servings of peaches a week can reduce the risk of certain types of breast cancer by 40%. Wow. Here's one, another BBC. Leafy vegetable diet cuts cancer risk. They found that research at Liverpool University found that a daily servings of broccoli, cabbage, lettuce, and sprouts can reduce the cancer risk by 46%. Those are huge numbers. Okay, those are big numbers. And just to put that into perspective, if you were able to have a chemotherapy drug that decreased like cancer by like, let's say 20-30%, that's huge. That's big. That's like you promoting that all the time, and you're going to see it in the headlines all over the place. But 46%, 40%, but we're not really hearing about these that much. But those are huge numbers right there. And here's the last one I'm going to bring up: turmeric. Turmeric is so interesting. Not only do I love curry, but the fact that it's also healthy for me, it's just a big plus, right? Turmeric, it's anti-inflammatory, used to treat arthritis, heartburn, stomach pain, and fibromyalgia. Now that's been known for many years. It's the same family as ginger, but now they're finding out. Now this is quite extensive. When you look at the research that is found in turmeric now with cancer, there's quite a bit, and I'm going to share with you. I believe I got 3 little ones on here, just to show it. Okay, curcumin in various cancers. And curcumin has the ability to inhibit carcinogenicity through the modulation of cell cycle, meaning it stops cancer. So that's one study. There's another study, targeting cancer stem cells by curcumin and clinical applications. They found that the anti-cancer effect of curcumin has been demonstrated in many cell and animal studies, and recent research has shown that curcumin can target cancer stem cells. That's another interesting thing, because you can totally remove the tumor, the cancer, and you can also do a lot of chemotherapy, and you can shrink it by destroying the daughter cells of the cell, of the original cancer, right? But what's left usually are the stem cells. Now these stem cells are what cause people to gain the cancer back, right? And if they can come out with a drug that targets specifically the stem cells, they'd be in big business. But they can't. But this does. Curcumin does specifically the targets cancer stem cells. Here's another one. Cancer cells. How many ways can curry kill tumor cells selectively? They tried to figure it out, and I think they came up with like 6 different ways. Overall, a review shows that curcumin can kill a wide variety of tumor cells through diverse mechanisms. Okay, let's see here. Because of numerous mechanisms of cell death employed by curcumin, it is possible that cells may not develop resistance to curcumin-induced cell death. Okay, basically, it kills it in so many different ways. I believe they came up with 5 different ways that it kills cancer. That the cancer, although it's been known to kind of shift its DNA and kind of evolve, and that's why it's difficult to kill, they believe it can't survive the attack of turmeric, of curcumin, specifically, just because it kills it in so many different ways. It's really fascinating here. So, and I share with you this Bible verse here. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits. Of course, we're talking about the tree in heaven, right? And the leaves of the tree were the healing of the nations. And it's just interesting how this comes up where we're finding out that this is indeed true for us today too. It's not just for when the second coming. And going back to our title, going back to what we originally saw. Now if we take up this image here, basically what we're looking at here is the Garden of Eden, correct? There's Adam and Eve. And so there's the Garden of Eden there. But knowing the things that we know now, scientifically and whatnot, for me, when I look at this, it's as if I'm looking at, God's pharmacy right here. Basically, the things of nature, now scientifically shown how it does it, actually is there to really help you, heal you, and make you whole. So, the text of my people perish for lack of knowledge. If they only knew that perhaps their diet had a chance of saving them, helping them, preventing this kind of disease, perhaps we wouldn't have so much suffering, at least in terms of this disease. My people perish for lack of knowledge. And I leave you with this. Then God said, let the land produce vegetation, and God saw that it was good. And I'm glad that we know that.
Amen.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
The content of the nutrients that are in vegetables and fruits nowadays,
Right.
I've heard was a lot lower than
Right.
everything.
Right.
So, do you have to double your portions to get that in? Or?
Yes. Actually, yes. And that's one thing that didn't show in the history of the American food is the agricultural changes. We've managed to start making